Back with you on Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Well, yesterday, round one of the Masters in the books. And look, the big story, of course, Tiger Woods out yesterday. -1 after his first round. Had the pink Nike shirt on, looking good, sporting all of that. It was funny. And I had a guy by the name of Will Gray on my show last night, and we were talking about just the impact of Tiger. But when he made that putt on 16 and you heard that crowd just go crazy, and they went back and showed about 4 different replays on the show. They kept showing the crowd in different angles and all that, and you see everybody getting up and making noise. I mean, it was like a wrestling crowd. It was like a wrestling pop. And it's amazing because when you think about golf and sort of the stagnant nature of golf, the way that Tiger can bring people to their feet and just rally people around him is amazing. And I give him all the credit in the world. There are a few athletes that can have that kind of impact on their fan base. There are a few guys that can do that and really make that kind of impression on people. He does that. And that putt at 16 yesterday was just magnificent. Big putt, got him to 1 under, and he just, brought the crowd to its feet out of all of it. Now, I will tell you, yesterday they were shooting darts out there on that course. And, because of the rain that they had gotten at Augusta over the last couple of days, boy, that course was just kind of nice and soft. And you saw guys really take some pokes at it and throw some darts at that. As the day went on and the wind picked up and temperatures warmed up and things like that, and the course dried a little bit, you saw some of those balls that were sticking earlier in the day weren't out there. It's going to be fascinating to see what the weather is like over the few days, because it's going to be mixtures of cold. It's going to be mixtures of lots of wind. Expect lots of wind gusts out there today. You've still got some water on, as far as not standing water on the course, but you've got greens that are still probably pretty well soaked, that have been in the shade and things like that, that can still hold some balls. The course itself, by Mother Nature, is going to change, I think, all through the weekend. And that's going to be one of the things to watch for over this weekend. When I was looking at this, Cameron Smith was a guy who had one of the most odd rounds of anybody out there yesterday. 6 is the first hole, 6 is the final hole, double bogey on 1 and 18, and then shoots 8 birdies in between that and finds himself at 4 under out there. He's a great wedge player. If you're not familiar with him, Australian, great player. He just looks so calm, cool, and collected out there. He's one of the guys I really think to watch for out there, because he can use his wedge in a very effective manner. One of the other things that I saw about Tiger yesterday too was, if you look at him statistically, he was about 288.5 yards off the tee yesterday. Now, you say that's a great number. I'd love to be able to hit that. But for Tiger, that's actually a pretty low number, when he's historically been, in the really grand days, he was in the 320 range. In the last few years, he's been in the, 290 to 297 type of range on his drives. But, this was a combination of his driving, part because of the injury, partly because he got himself in trouble. On 18, he hit a drive where he ended up on 10 and had to hit it back into the fairway and everything like that. So how he continues to drive and how he navigates, because it doesn't sound like much to say, well, he's only, 4, 5, 6 yards off of his normal drive. But in the world of golf, that can be a lot when you start talking about, okay, what's my next shot going to be? How do I approach this? Can I get over a water hazard instead of having to lay up in front of it and things like that? So I'll be curious to see what his driving distance looks like over these next, hopefully more than just today. And we'll see. I think he's going to make the cut at this point. I'd be surprised if he doesn't make the cut out of all of this. But it was certainly a sight to see with Tiger and him being out there on the course, and just the way people reacted to him, just the throng of people that saw him. And like I said, when he hit that putt at 16 and they started showing 8 different angles of all the crowd and just everybody in this section standing up and that section standing up and everybody around it, it made you really enjoy, the sport, and made you really rally around Tiger. We'll see. I mean, for Tiger, one of the benefits is that he finished up early and doesn't have to start until later today. So he's in a pretty good position where he didn't have to have a quick turnaround of finish late, get up early, and try to adjust and make good from there. But I think the story is going to be, besides just Tiger, is how does the weather affect the course over the next few days? Because you're supposed to get combinations of potential rain, but certainly wind, a lot of wind gusts today, sun coming in and out, but you got cold temperatures that are in there as well. It's going to be fascinating to see how Augusta plays over the next few days. And a couple of the names that look, Scotty Scheffler is the number one player in the world, a guy who 6 weeks ago couldn't figure out how to win on tour. Now he's won 3 of the last 5 out there. He's obviously in the mix. Cameron Smith is a guy, like I said, that I really think is going to be a part of this final few days, where he just looks like a guy who's poised. He's trying to be one of the first guys, I think, to win a couple of different tournaments, the Masters, and I want to say it's like one of the other Opens, or whatever. I think him and Tiger are the only 2 guys to do that in the same year. But he's playing at a really high level right now. And Dustin Johnson, another guy that you saw that a lot of people have been wondering, okay, when is he going to get this thing on track? When is he going to become that star player again? He had a monster day yesterday out there. But certainly watching Tiger Woods and his performance out there yesterday at the Masters, I think really inspired a lot of people. And just the fact that he's been able to come back. We talked about this the other day on the show, that the word amputation was used. Now, I don't know how much y'all use the word amputation in your daily vocabulary, but when Tiger Woods was discussing what the potentials were for coming back, that word amputation was used. That was one of the words that was used as far as what it could end up being for him. And thankfully, none of that happened. Thankfully, he found a way to get back. And I'll tell you the other thing about Tiger, too, is when you saw him yesterday, and I really do believe this, I don't think Tiger was ever going to show himself limping and things like that. And I know that there were reports about when he went and played the practice round, when he got out there and this and the other, that there were times when he showed some form of what looked like a limp, or it looked like he was struggling a little bit. He was not going to show that yesterday out at Augusta. He was not going to, in front of the fans and the cameras and the TV and everybody else in the world, he was not going to show any signs of weakness, was he? He wasn't going to do anything like that in front of everybody. He may have internally been feeling lots of pain, and I know that Nick Faldo talked about on the broadcast yesterday that at the Masters dinner, because Faldo's obviously a multi-time champion himself, but he asked Tiger Woods about where his pain threshold was in all of this. And he said, on a scale of 1 to 10, it was about a 5 or whatever like that, which is probably being generous. He probably really is at about a 7 or 8 because he hasn't walked a course. He hasn't played. He hasn't done anything. Remember, he was in a hospital bed for multiples of weeks, and then he brought a hospital bed home and stayed in that for multiples of weeks. So he's barely had any time to do anything to try to get himself back in there. I know they talked about he was working out in water and different things like that, but he was not going to show any signs of weakness out there on the course yesterday. So it will be fascinating to see what he does. I think the 2 stories, Tiger number 1 and the weather affecting how the course plays, will be the other big factor in all of this. I want to thank you for being a part of Hitting Hard. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Got the link right there. Subscribe to it. Review us. Give us some likes. Give us your thoughts about what you see on here. You can always follow me on Twitter, by the way. It is at JMCH316. We will be back with you next week. It is Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.